Mobs tearing down historic statues.
We are looking at long-term jail sentences for these vandals and these hoodlums and these anarchists and agitators, and call them whatever you want. Some people don't like that language, but that's what they are. They're bad people. They don't love our country, and they're not taking down our monuments. I just want to make that clear.
The president speaking on the White House lawn just before boarding his helicopter for a trip to Arizona and a visit to the 200th mile of new border wall construction. He also held a roundtable meeting with local officials touting his administration's accomplishments on border security.
My administration has done more than any administration in history to secure our southern border. Our border has never been more secure.
The president also spoke with a group called Students for Trump Tuesday evening in Phoenix. The president winning Kentucky's Republican primary Tuesday, Joe Biden winning on the Democrat side. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has defeated his primary opponent, but the race to determine which Democrat will oppose him in the fall too close to call. With so many mailed-in ballots, the final counts may take days. Ask your Amazon smart speaker to play the news from Fox. America is listening to Fox News.
Oral magunom, matana lom suman kumin healthy and niceness. Karingin komniki met saye nakshike sensing kanyan fashil klan ma saying in wangin takayani and wangin napashali matana lom suman. Akayakom is mongle ashosh kamofal esukomines be vitamin nasum. Karingin gubsifena in niceness in tia apashali. Overpowered to kungom na yen, tia kalmotom, infame, in welum, e aknas na siyen kumatakyan. Inaksafye akola. Arela emergency contact list lom, aroy nash mo aknas nas ko onlo in lomsuman, nakarangin in jash mit masin lomsuman. Aro makuno minako ye aknas na siyen kuam in nasnas aim safe. Nanakmanas, matana in lomsuman. Message saying e masin manyatlu, Micronesian Resource Center at Choice Broadcasting.
With help from his old boss, presumptive Democrat nominee Joe Biden raising a lot of campaign money on Tuesday.
A virtual fundraiser featuring former President Obama raised more than $7.5 million for Joe Biden's campaign, a single-day fundraising record for Biden. Donations came in from more than 175,000 individuals. Obama told supporters there's nobody he trusts more to heal the country than Biden. Obama endorsed Biden in April, but has not done many campaign events with his former vice president since. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Federal investigators have determined that NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace was not the victim of a hate crime, determining that a noose found in a garage he was using at the Talladega Speedway over the weekend had been there for months at least. NASCAR's Chief Operating Officer Steve Phelps relieved.
Seeing the support that Bubba had from not just the drivers, but all the crews, all the officials who were down in pit row, anyone who was part of that footprint, everyone wanted to show their support for a family member of NASCAR. We are one big family. We are one large community.
What was mistaken for a noose was actually a loop in the rope used to pull open the garage doors. One of the Louisville police officers involved in the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor has been fired. According to his termination letter, Officer Brett Hankinson showed extreme indifference when he wantonly opened fire, shooting 10 rounds into the woman's apartment during a no-knock drug search back in March. He also violated the department's rules against deadly force. A Los Angeles City Council committee has approved a series of changes to reset the city's troubled legal marijuana market. Illegal pot shops continue to flourish in L.A., while licensed companies complain that just about everything costs too much and there's too much red tape in dealing with City Hall. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hakata and Tuman are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by Security Title, when you absolutely need confidentiality in your real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So we would never even think about supporting someone who would infringe upon that right, would we, Real Joe Cruz?
Of course not, sir.
No. We are, right here in Tall Tales, we are very pro-Second Amendment, pro-Bill of Rights, pro-United States Constitution, anti-identity politics, anti-neo-Marxism, pro-American. I speak for myself when I say I love the United States of America. I think it's a great country, probably the greatest country the earth has ever seen. I don't think my faithful companion, Real Joe Cruz, the Real Joe Cruz, differs from me on that one.
I don't, sir.
Very good, Real Joe Cruz. I thought that's what you'd say. Okay, so we go from the Second Amendment straight. I don't think my straight.
Oh, that's two Bobs.
Straight to turning down the other Bob. Something I learned from Jimmy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go straight into Zemi Ikotny. So we start out with the Daily News. Instead of running a local editorial, running some boilerplate from USA Today. No surprise, no Blue Star, nothing but discredit and scorn from Tall Tales because they aren't local enough to run local editorials. And from there we go to the Post, which runs local editorials every day, and they're usually good editorials. So here we go today. Here's what the Post says. Thank you, Uncle Sam, for the $1 billion bailout for Guam. Guam would have been economically sinking deeper by now if not for the multiple types of assistance the United States government, through the approval of Congress, has provided the island and its government over the past several months. The more than $1 billion federal aid has given our local government and residents a lifeline to stay afloat. It allows us time to get our acts together to survive more months of economic hardships, as the tourism industry will take more time to bounce back. So far, Guam residents and the local government have received various forms of assistance, including through these federal funding sources. Close to $134 million in economic impact relief checks. That's $1,200 for an individual, $2,400 for a couple, plus $500 for each dependent child. $276 million for the initial unemployment program claims for thousands of Guam residents who were laid off or experienced reduced paychecks. These benefits are now starting to flow. I'm going to say now finally starting to flow into displaced workers' households. GovGuam has requested a total budget of more than $900 million for the unemployment programs through December. $192.6 million for 2,004 small businesses in the form of loans that will be written off if employers use the money for payroll to keep workers who would otherwise have been let go because of the pandemic. $40 million for 645 small businesses and low-interest loans through the Small Business Administration to help them and the jobs they create survive. $118 million in direct aid to GovGuam under the Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as CARES. Yeah. $4.5 million for the University of Guam, $1.1 million for Guam Community College, $41.5 million for the Guam Department of Education schools, as well as charter and private schools, $20 million to the airport to help cover for lost revenue and bond debt payments. That's a lot of money. We owe the federal government and Congress our expression of gratitude, because without these and other funds, many on Guam would have had an even tougher time surviving the economic fallout of the Wuhan virus pandemic, which has caused our tourist industry to pause for nearly 4 months. There are many other forms of assistance our local government and residents have received, including expanded benefits from federally funded programs that have kept our low-income residents from going hungry. We thought it was worthy to say that you, after we've heard, we thought it worthy to say thank you after we've heard certain elected GovGuam officials make announcements about their efforts to get economic assistance into the hands of Guam residents, as if the money was Guam's own. Let's not forget the source of more than $1 billion in financial assistance our island has received so far from the federal government. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Okay, before I forget, that editorial rates the Blue Star right now. But I'm not through with it, because that editorial obviously answers the foolishness that came out of the governor's office yesterday, as reported in the very same Guam Post. And this was a story I read yesterday that I'm going to expand upon right now. Governor, delegates should apologize to the people of Guam. Okay, so Governor Leon Guerrero said, Governor Leon Guerrero said, Delegate Michael San Nicolas should, quote, apologize to the people of Guam for calling government of Guam leaders incompetent in his social media post. And then San Nicolas said, our people are hurting, and as a public servant, I will absolutely be the first to apologize to the people of Guam for all the hardship and suffering they have endured these past months. I am sorry the people of Guam are going through this. For as much as the congressional office has done and continues to do, I still wish I could do more. And then from the governor said the delegate's characterization of Guam officials is totally incorrect, very untruthful. What that has done, it has put a doubt on the people of Guam's trust for our leaders. I remarked yesterday, Michael San Nicolas didn't need to do that. I think there was already a significant amount of distrust in the so-called government leaders who thought they would blockade Marine Corps Drive and a couple of other streets just because they could. and then play this this yo-yo game with the shutdown. Yeah, we're going to lift the shutdown on Monday. Well, oops, we changed our mind. We'll do it Sunday. Not to mention, right out of the chute, doing away with the open government law and telling the legislature that they could do away with it. Talk about separation of powers. San Nicolas Father's Day post on the governor said in her Monday Wuhan virus news briefing that San Nicolas had put the people of Guam in doubt of trust of the government. And then the governor goes on to say this: we are working very hard to get through this Wuhan virus. Actually, she said, we are working very hard to get through this COVID, as though the COVID were like a forest or something like that. And then she said, the governor said the competent leaders of GovGuam brought in some $1.2 billion in COVID, as you were Wuhan-rated, financial aid to Guam, which has helped the people in need of local economy. So that's what this editorial is talking about, this $1.2 million. The governor said she includes establishing the unemployment benefits program in 12 weeks. The governor also mentioned the federal government's approval and release of $134.8 million in economic impact payments, etc. And because of our competent leaders, we are quickly coming up and growing back our economy, the governor said in her closing remarks. Well, this is all very ironic, and the irony was not lost on the editors of the Post. So they came back with this editorial today, basically slapping down the governor. In fact, one gold star, I'm going to set a record, I'm going to set a precedent here. I'm going to give them, the Post, 2 gold stars today. I mean, blue stars. This is what editorial writing is all about. You know, it's not news, it is opinion, and it speaks up for, and a lot of times what the editorial says is what everybody knows and everybody's thinking, but nobody's saying. And the Post has been pretty good at coming out and saying, well, maybe you don't want to say this, but we're going to say it. So then, if we go on a little bit more, now Michael San Nicolas, told what Michael San Nicolas said. He said, I am firmly resolved to shorten this labor of love if the people of Guam do not resoundingly change out the incompetence of local leadership. And this was the burr under the governor's saddle that caused her to call him out. But Michael says the people of Guam are incompetent. Well, it's just really interesting that in the same issue of the Post as the editorial, I found this one. GPD seeks more funding to hire cops. The Guam Police Department is requesting an additional $2.9 million to fund 6 major initiatives that include hiring an additional 100 police officers and increasing fleet. In other words, buying cars. So they're shorthanded. Okay, I got that. Next article. This is the Post. GPD misses deadline for hiring grant. A federal grant that helped the police department hire police officers to help fill its manpower shortage won't be received again this year. The application for the grant wasn't submitted. Good reason, though. There was a really good reason they didn't submit it. Due to a shortage of personnel.
Oh, I see.
Shortage of personnel. Maybe they didn't have enough people staying home to get the work done.
I see.
Yeah. In 2017, GPD successfully applied for the Community-Oriented Police Services Hiring Program and received $1.6 million grant that allowed GPD to hire 15 police officers. Now, going back to this other story, the one I read right before, GPD seeks more funding to hire cops. I guess that when they say we got to hire cops, they only want to use local money. They don't want any of the federal money. Only local money. That 3-year award expired this year. The DOJ announced another opportunity for the 2020 cycle with a March 11 deadline, the website noted. The website includes a list of awardees for 2020 ranging from the town of Elk Garden, West Virginia, which was awarded $50,380 for one police officer, to $9.7 million from the Milwaukee Police Department. Guam State Clearinghouse confirmed GPD didn't submit a grant for 2020 and referred questions on why the application wasn't sent to GPD. Don't ask us. Don't ask us down here in this federal grant clearinghouse.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, ask GPD, because we don't want to be embarrassed. So we'll just pass the buck on to them.
But isn't the clearinghouse supposed to be on top of those things?
One would think so.
Okay.
One would think so. Stephanie Flores, Guam GSC administrator, said her office did send reminders to GPD to submit the application. GSC assists agencies with federal grants, which also looking out for grants that support the priorities of the administration. It's the responsibility of the agency to submit their grants. Well, they reminded them, not their fault. Not their fault. They all have, when they go to work, they all have these special garments that they buckle around their waist, completely covering dagatniha.
Yeah.
Which was the object right here, CYA. Yeah. So we can't blame that clearinghouse for missing the boat there. On May 2019, we recruited and filled all 15 positions. However, 3 officers resigned, et cetera, et cetera. With respect to the 2020 grant, Sergeant Paul Tapau sent an updated response a few days later. For Cops 20, due to shortage of personnel, GPD was not able to obtain all required signatures to meet the deadline. What do they have to go out like the running for office and get 250 signatures?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Well, they couldn't get all the signatures. They didn't have enough people to do that.
I think somebody fell. They don't have the word "fell" there in that article?
No, we'll give it to them, though, right? Fail. Now, however, should the COPS grant be available for 2021, GPD will submit interest in pursuing the grant. Well, that's comforting. Yeah. The horse is gone. The horse is way, way down the road. But we went to the hardware store and we bought this great big Yale padlock. And you could look at the door to that barn. It's padlocked tight shut now. So don't worry. Next year, if it's still available, yeah, I take so much comfort from that. GPD has 299 officers. Police Chief Steve Ignacio has noted the Public Safety Agency should have at least 400 officers. Now, I wonder how he determined how many he needed when they're shorthanded. How many employees does it take to count from 299 to 400? Round figures, probably 6 or 7 employees, right?
You're right, sir.
Yeah. According to the DOJ website, grant recipients may request a no-cost extension to receive additional time to implement the grant program. These extensions do not provide additional funding, the site states. Only those grantees that can provide a reasonable justification for delays will be granted no-cost extensions. Reasonable costs? We were short-handed. How much more reasonable can you get than that? The cops hiring program is designed to reduce crime and advance public safety and teach people how to keep track of time. It's called a suspense calendar. The program's funding supports the hiring of career law enforcement officers to increase an agency's community policing capacity and crime prevention efforts, etc. So, wow, that was a tearjerker, you know. We couldn't apply for that money that allowed us to hire 15 cops in 2017 because we just didn't have enough people.
You're right, sir. I almost
Yeah.
cried laughing.
Yeah. Okay, then the next article here. Senators question $85,000 leases for 2 vehicles. An $85,000 line item in the Guam Police Department fiscal 2021 budget proposal for vehicle leases had a few senators raising their eyebrows during Thursday's budget hearing. Yeah. There we go. Raising their...
Well done, sir.
Yeah.
You were a senator before, weren't you?
Yeah, well, you know, when you're first sworn in, they have this little class. There's a 2-hour block of instruction on eyebrow raising. So
Sir, you might have to call a medic for me. You're killing me in here.
So, you know, if you're at a public hearing and you hear something that really sounds way off base, but you don't want to say anything about it, you give it an eyebrow raise. And I don't know if the recording secretary is apt at picking these up so that the journal shows Senator Klitzkie raised his eyebrows. Back to the story here. A $85,000 line item in the Guam Police Department fiscal 2021 budget proposal for vehicle leases had a few senators raising their eyebrows during the Tuesday budget hearing. Now, this is horribly sexist, right? But, you know, men ordinarily don't, well, I don't know, didn't used to wear eyebrow makeup. You know, when I was a boy, men didn't wear, I don't know what it's like now. You really don't know. But do you suppose that the 10 females in the legislature engaged in eyebrow raising also?
It's possible, sir.
Yeah. Well, here we go. Senator Raging Bisco Lee inquired what the leases were for and whether the $85,000 line item was for a single vehicle or a fleet of vehicles. You could buy a whole fleet of the cars that I buy for 85 grand, right? Yeah. You could put Yellow Cab out of business with that kind of money. It's the vehicle lease for vehicles being used for the governor and lieutenant governor, said Virginia Manglotnia, GPD's administrative service officer. I probably need some music for this, Real Joe Cruz. I need something that's kind of upbeat, you know, like Hail to the Chief.
Oh, I don't know if I have Hail to the Chief, sir.
Probably not. Probably not. Something like that, you know, something to dramatize the entrance of the governor and the lieutenant governor.
Let me see.
It's the vehicle lease for vehicles being used for the governor and lieutenant governor, said Virginia Manglotnia, administrative services officer. It's for 2 Yukons, those really high-end SUVs, explained Major Manny Chong, acting police commander. Chong confirmed the $85,000 was a line item the department had used in the past, which makes it okay, right? Now, we know it's wrong, but we've done it before, so it's okay. Joe San Augustine said he wanted to take a closer look at the $85,000 contract. I'd like that to go to help the police officers and maybe shift that to the governor's budget, said San Augustine. The police officers are already on duty. You don't need to provide everything else. We need to share the wealth. I could have phrased it in better terms than that. How about something corny like this? Major Chong, acting police commander? How about mission first? Wouldn't that be more important? Wouldn't it be better to have more squad stars out on the street than equip the governor and the lieutenant governor with luxury vehicles? And not even from their own budget, from the police department's budget? Bangladesh also told lawmakers that the department has a pending purchase order for 12 new police vehicles that are expected to be ready to hit the streets next year. But priorities, we can't have the governor and lieutenant governor tearing around in year-old cars. All right, let's take a short break here, and we'll come back to the used car lot in a minute.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Back again. Real Joe Cruz, I don't buy cars very often, right?
No, you don't, sir, you don't.
Yeah.
You make them last.
Well, I'm still driving that 1992 Daihatsu Rocky.
I know, and it's very well kept.
Well, you know, you take care of stuff, it lasts longer.
True.
I know that's almost heresy as far as the government of Guam is concerned, right?
Yes, sir.
But these Yukons, what brand is a Yukon?
I believe it's a GMC, sir.
GMC.
And these are Yukon Denalis.
Yukon Denalis.
I believe so.
Denali's in Alaska, not in Yukon.
True. But the Denali, it signifies the most upper premium top shelf brand.
I see. Well, I hope they know more about cars than they do about geography.
True, sir.
So who sells GMC on Guam?
I believe Guam Auto Spot, sir.
Guam Auto Spot.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
In Agana.
That's convenient, isn't it?
It's coincidental, probably, sir.
Probably just a coincidence. Yeah. I suspect that they complied with every single period and comma in the procurement law when they spent $85,000 on 2 cars, right?
Of course, sir. They probably used the governor's attorney to help write up the papers.
They probably used the same set of form books that they used to lease the hotels.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Guam Auto Spot, huh? Yukon Denali's. That's really interesting.
They have other great brands there too, sir.
Say again?
They have other great brands there too.
Well, what are we going to have, a commercial here?
Oh,
Joe
just,
Cruz?
yeah. No, sir. I mean, just saying.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. I suspect they have cheaper cars, right?
They do. They have all different price levels of cars there.
Yeah. But if you're the governor and lieutenant governor, no. No place to start but at the top.
You got to ride in style, sir.
Absolutely. Otherwise, why would you want to be governor?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so going on with this article here, senators also questioned a request for an additional $60,000 in rental costs. Senator Therese Tetlahi inquired if the department's management anticipated increases in leases due to the requested increase for the upcoming fiscal year budget. Manglonia didn't answer the question directly, but did explain the administrative division of the department recently moved to Hacabotan, where the department pays $25,000 a month in rent. Now, let me see. Well, they're paying $25,000 a month in rent for Hacabotan at a time when the rental market, one would think, is somewhat depressed because Lou shut the government down, right? Because shut the island down. But somehow Hacabotan was chosen for this $25,000 lease. I think there's only one Hacabotan building on island, isn't there?
You're correct, sir. I believe it's not. It's across maybe Copy Express behind ITC building in
Yeah,
Timony.
behind the FHP clinic.
Yes, correct, sir.
Yeah, it's that
Correct.
big. Isn't that the same building that the governor used free for the whole war claims check?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That was the post for checking in.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the media, the studio.
I see, sir.
Where
yeah.
all that great footage was developed.
Correct.
You know, hugging and kissing the old folks and patting them on the back.
Yes,
and,
sir.
And all of these things. Great media. In fact, I gave Lou a prize that in all my years of observing politics here, I have never seen anybody squeeze more earned media out of a nothing event than that. And I remember there was some chatter at the time, you can't do a favor for the government of Guam. If for instance, if you were an automobile dealer and you said, Governor, I think you're doing a great job and I want to help you out. I want you to take this car and you can use it for 2 whole years and it won't cost you a nickel. You can't do that. It's against the law. There are hoops that you have to jump through before you can make a gift to the government of Guam. So that issue was raised at what is the government doing in the Hacabotan building? And I think the ace director of communications for the governor's office, this is before she started her film career, Janela Carrera, kind of brushed the whole thing off and said, oh, it's okay, etc. But what a coincidence. The same building that at the beginning of the year made itself available at no cost to the governor for the media extravaganza now winds up with a $25,000 a month lease for the police department that just built a new police headquarters up in Sinahanya. What a coincidence.
True, sir.
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything else here I need to talk about. Yeah, that's it. So going back here to where we started, the governor telling Michael San Nicolas that he should apologize because he said, I am firmly resolved to shorten this labor of love if the people of Guam do not resoundingly change out the incompetence of local leadership. And the governor said, oh, no, that's not correct. We are working very hard. And of course, I would probably give a $10 reward for anybody from the government who came in and said, our employees goof off a lot. Because every time, you would think, hard-working government employee is just one word. You know, you can't use those words by themselves. So we are working very hard to get through the Wuhan virus. You know, we just don't have enough people to apply for the free money. And, you know, we're going to take really good care of those 2 luxury vehicles that we bought for the governor and lieutenant governor. So how about it? Does St. Nicholas have a point? If Michael St. Nicholas is guilty of anything, if you want to hold him on something, it's understatement. It's worse than what you're saying, Michael. Okay, so we kind of snuck into the card there from Zemi Kotny. So let's go back to the rest of the card now, and this is what I got on the card. I have Troy versus Janela, day 39. Tina versus Emergency. I am really happy to say that it's been 13 days since Tina has detected an emergent situation that endangers the health or safety of the people. And then let's see, I've got Lou versus Lou, that's our governor, versus the people. I've got Mary Torres versus the Port of Guam. Call back from yesterday with even more stuff going for it. I've got Democrats versus the other Governor Leon Guerrero, also known as Ken. And I've got BLM versus the facts. I don't know that I'll get that far today. And in connection with Mary Torres versus the Port of Guam, I want to give everybody a heads up. I know you want to listen to Tall Tales every day, and if you miss it, you really feel bad, and probably almost every one of our international radio listening audience, should they have to miss Tall Tales, goes on Facebook or YouTube and looks at the episode there, denying to themselves the ability to call in or post on Facebook, but still, it is Tall Tales. Well, make sure you set your clock for 1600 tomorrow, because at 1630, I'm going to break with tradition, and I'm going to have a guest on Tall Tales. The way the Tall Tales format is set up, we don't need no stinking guests, right? But tomorrow, I'm going to have a very special guest that ties in exactly with Mary Torres versus the Port of Guam. I'm going to have as my special guest the former executive manager of the Port of Guam, Joanne Brown. So you want to be sure you're here at 4:30 with a pencil and paper to take notes. Okay, so let's get started with the card. Let's see, Janela versus Troy. I already told you it's been 39 days since the Crystal Paco papers let Janela off the hook, and it's been a couple weeks since Janela launched her revenge campaign against Troy. We'll just have to see how that one plays out. And then as far as Tina is concerned, for Tina, it has been 13 days since she saw anything that looked like a danger to the public health or safety, causing her to call the legislature into emergency session and waive public hearing requirements for bills, like she did for 3 bills to provide for double pay for those hardworking frontline government employees. So I guess we've been pretty safe for the last 13 days. Then I've got, next I've got Mary Torres versus the Port of Guam. There's some really interesting stuff here. I read the story yesterday, Civil Service report, reinstate fired port marketing manager. Mistakes by the Port Authority management could result in the reinstatement of fired port employee Bernadette Mano. Mano, before she was fired in 2012, had base salary of $70,844. the port's marketing manager, which means the port might be required to pay her more than $500,000. $500,000. That is serious money. The port general manager, Mary Torres, was removed after she refused to terminate several port employees accused of being part of an alleged scheme. They were fired anyway. So the story kind of goes into this. Quotes from the decision of the administrative law judge: the GM and other management personnel should have known not to approve expenditures without a written document authorizing the workers' comp claim. The administrative law judge report states, noting Torres and other port managers had a fiduciary duty to authorize leave and expenses supported by the law and documents before them. So I've got some papers here that come out of that case. I already read you the administrative law judge's decision, which I'm going to come back to in a minute or two. And I have here in front of me the notice of proposed adverse action that was served on Bernadette Mano back in December of 2012. And this is what it says. This action is taken in accordance with Chapter 11, Rule 11.303, governing authorized causes for adverse action. And then it says, and for the following violations. First violation, actual or attempted theft of government or port authority property or property of others. Disobedience to constituted authorities or deliberate refusal to carry out any proper order. Falsification, misstatement, or concealment of material fact in connection with any official record. Covering up or attempting to conceal defective work, removing or destroying same without permission. According to the facts surfaced during the investigation provided to you of the attached reports, quote, the reported slip and fall, and, quote, findings of fact and conclusions of law, you allege that you slipped and fell, injuring yourself on September 22, 2011. However, you did not seek leave for any reason until November 15, 2011, and only sought medical attention on your own 9 months later. Further, you willfully ignored the requirements that a government employee must fulfill in order to file a valid workman's comp claim pursuant to 17 GCR 10-107. In fact, you admittedly refused to be seen at GMH as required. The Workers' Comp Commission maintains that it has never been made aware of any claim for medical treatment and that it has not been informed of any developments in this case since September 2011. You have made written representations to port management regarding the extent and severity of your injury, which are contradicted by the medical evidence in your own records. For example, you represented to management that your spine was cracked and leaking fluid, that the surgeon would have to go through, quote, go through my stomach and pull out the broken and cracked disc, and then they will cut me open from the back and use a bone graft to merge the non-broken discs together, and insisted as recently as September 10, 2012, that you sustained a broken disc. This is what Mano said. Yet the very specialist you asked to see described the injury to be a small herniated disc. The MRI ordered by this specialist revealed only a mild disc bulge and moderate disc disease, relatively minor thoracolumbar scoliosis, with the radiology specialist recommending if patient's symptoms do not resolve with conservative therapy, therapeutic spinal injection can be completed. Now, this is long. There's a lot here, so bear with me on this one. We're going to take a short break here and be right back.
The Guam Visitors Bureau and Island Beautification Task Force invite you to come out and join the community on Saturday, June 27th, as we work together to beautify our island. Showtime is at 8 a.m. Let's take a moment to show our island pride, to get up and move towards building a better, safer Guam for our friends, families, and visitors. Learn how you can sign up for a beautification site or donate supplies at GuamVisitorsBureau.com and follow social media pages for updates. Special thanks to the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They are located in Agana, and they are open for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them at 479-2652 or 2653. Get your Mezcla fix today.
So this is the notice of adverse action that was given to Bernadette Mayno when she was fired. This is the reason. These are the reasons she was fired. Your file indicates you have taken extensive leave periods for a variety of reasons, including prior to the injury for medical reasons. And then you claimed you slipped and fell in the bathroom and hurt your legs, hips, back, and arm. No witnesses can even corroborate your claim that you indeed slipped and fell, causing your back injury. Your fraudulent concealment of the wrongful acts of yourself and others tolls the 60-day rule under 4 GCA 4406. Toll means stops the running of the clock. Although your file indicates since July of 2011 you have taken over 125 days worth of annual leave, sick leave, and work injury leave based on unspecified medical illness, notes from your doctor, approval from Workmen's Compensation is needed to credit you with uncharged leave on the basis of your alleged September 22, 2011 slip and fall. Your medical file reveals a host of pre-existing medical conditions and ailments which could account for at least some of the symptoms and ailments which you attribute to the alleged slip and fall at the port. You attempted to get and did receive Code 45 leave for which you knew you were not authorized. You have exaggerated your injuries, lied about what caused them, manipulated the system in order to reap benefits for which you knew you were not lawfully entitled. When your port-funded trip to Hawaii got canceled, you bitterly lashed out at those trying to make things right. You refused to allow Dr. Taniguchi to examine you when the port offered this as an opportunity to pursue your claim. You then showed up for work on November 14, 2012, without any sign of injury. You conspired to commit theft, fraud, and to cover up actions relating to these and other prohibited acts. For your willful representations, illegal expenditures, and the following cover-up, you may be charged with the following misdemeanors: official misconduct, unsworn falsifications, and obstructing government functions. Third-degree felonies for which you could be charged include forgery, unlawful influence, and tampering with public records. You may be jointly and civilly liable for the legal expenditures under 5 GCA 7102, which requires that you exercise care, skill, and prudence and diligence solely in the interest of the people of Guam, or be personally liable for taxpayer actions to recover the expenditure for as long as 5 years. Your role in acquiring fully paid injury leave for which you have never been entitled under any statute carries penalties of up to a $100,000 fine and 3 years in prison under 22 GCA Section 9104J3. This is in addition to the misdemeanor violation of making false or misleading statements in order to secure workers' comp benefits under 22 GCA 9132. Related criminal and civil liability. For GCA public officers and employees, Section 3105, officers of governing bodies may be liable for losses due to an exercise of due care. Section 3106, officers of local government bodies may be held personally liable for the negligent acts or omissions of employees under him if the officer failed to supervise such employee with due care. 9 GCA criminal statutes. Workers' comp, 22 GCA Section 9132. It is a misdemeanor to make any false or misleading statements for purposes of obtaining any benefits. Chapter 46, forgery, fraudulent practices and telephone records. 4610, forgery, falsified writings, alterations, deceptions, misdemeanors to third-degree felony. 4625, tampering with records. 4670, misapplication of entrusted funds. 4640, unlawful influence. Third-degree felony to exchange any benefit as a consideration for improperly influencing or attempting to influence a public servant. 4990, misdemeanor with the intent to benefit self or another. Commits an unauthorized exercise of official function or fails to exercise official duty. Unsworn falsifications. That's 5230. 5510, tampering with public records. Third-degree felony if intent to defraud or injure. 55.45, obstructing government functions. Misdemeanor to intentionally obstruct any government duties or functions. And then there's a section, an item here, 22 GCA 9104J3 penalties, and it lays out the penalties. Fines of $10,000 to $100,000, imprisonment for 3 years, etc. Other civil liability, on December 14, 2012, you personally appeared before me with your attorney to respond to the alleged charges. Also present was Port Co-Counsel John R.B. Bell. At the end of this hearing, you were advised that I would review response and documents provided. After careful consideration of your responses to the charges outlined in your proposed adverse action, I have decided to take formal adverse action against you. This letter serves as official notice of adverse action for termination, effective upon receipt of this final notice. Signed, sincerely, Joanne M. Brown, General Manager, Acting. So that's what Joanne Brown was charged with. I'm sorry, that's what Bernadette Mano was charged with. Now, you remember there were 6. Okay, time for that big halftime show. We'll come back to the Port Authority right after that big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Is Lincoln next? I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. More protests in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday evening. Crowds cheering as an American flag was burned in Lafayette Park, across the street from the White House. President Trump tweeting, "It's a shame that Congress doesn't do something about the lowlifes that burned the American flag." Earlier, protesters gathered at the Emancipation Memorial in Washington, chanting they plan to take that statue down. It is of Abraham Lincoln and a freed slave, but opponents complain it appears that the slave is kneeling at Lincoln's feet. Secretary of the Interior David Bernhardt telling Fox's The Ingram Angle federal statues will be protected.
I instructed the erection of a fence at Lafayette Plaza as well as at St. John's Church. And we will protect these monuments, and we will do it with dispatch and severity.
President Trump telling a gathering of students for Trump in Phoenix last night he will not tolerate the destruction of historical monuments.
Now they're after George Washington. I said, what did he do wrong, George Washington? Thomas Jefferson, we stopped them. They were heading toward the Jefferson Memorial. They couldn't care less. I think half of them don't even know who Thomas Jefferson is.
The president also marked the 200th mile of newly constructed border wall near Yuma, Arizona, and held a roundtable on border security. The statue of former Vice President John C. Calhoun is being removed now from a park in Charleston, South Carolina. Only hours after Charleston City Council voted unanimously to remove it. Calhoun died a decade before the Civil War, but was a defender of slavery. Louisville, Kentucky has fired one of the police officers involved in the shooting of an unarmed black woman back in March, claiming that Officer Brett Harkinson violated the department's use of force policy. Breonna Taylor was shot during the execution of a no-knock search warrant at her apartment. America is listening to Fox News.
Oro makunom, matana lom suman kumin healthy and lessness. Karingin kumniki matsaye nakshike sinjing kanyan fashil klan masenge. Inwang tagayani and wang napashali, matana lom suman. Akayakom, ace mongle, ashosh, kamofal, esukumines be vitamin nasum. Karingin gupsifena in niceness in tia apashali. O about to kungum som na yen, tia kalmotom, inflame, inwelum, eaknas na siyen kumatakyan. Inaksafye akola. Arela emergency contact list lom, aroy nash mo yaknas nas kaonlo in nomsuman, nakarangin in jash mit masin nomsuman. Aro makuno minako ye aknas na siyen kuam in nasnas aim safe. Nanakmanas, matana in nomsuman. Message saying ye masin manyatlu, Micronesian Resource Center at Choice Broadcasting.
The GOP police reform bill is expected to stall in the U.S. Senate today.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the Justice Act is fundamentally flawed, a legislative dead end, signaling Democrats will block the Republican measure on a procedural vote this morning.
The Republican majority has given the Senate a bad bill and proposed no credible way to sufficiently improve it.
But the bill's chief sponsor, South Carolina Republican Tim Scott, says if Democrats have better ideas, debate them.
This is not about them or us, but it's about those youngsters who today are afraid to jog down the street or get in their car and drive.
A House Democratic bill, which the White House has called a non-starter, is expected to get a vote tomorrow. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying to a congressional committee Tuesday, asked about a possible coronavirus vaccine.
One of them will enter phase 3 study in July. This is one that has already shown in preliminary studies some very favorable response in the animal models that were developed.
Dr. Fauci also telling lawmakers testing for the coronavirus has actually increased. It wasn't a noose after all, found in a NASCAR driver's garage over the weekend.
In a statement Tuesday, the FBI said evidence, including authentic video confirmed by NASCAR, shows that the noose found in Bubba Wallace's garage stall at Talladega Superspeedway was present as early as October of last year. However, federal officials note the number 43 team wasn't assigned that stall until last week. Therefore, the incident is not being deemed a hate crime. The FBI's comments were then followed by a statement from Wood Brothers Racing, who held the stall for the fall race at Talladega in 2019, revealing that one of their employees recalled, quote, seeing a tied handle in the garage pull-down rope from last fall, end quote. Wood Brothers then immediately alerted NASCAR and assisted authorities in this now closed federal investigation. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Rent rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are back at the port of Guam. So I just finished reading the notice of proposed adverse action that caused the termination of Bernadette Mano from the port. Bernadette, of course, is the key figure in what has been referred to as the Port 7. 7 employees of the port were fired in a matter that revolved around Bernadette's claim of injury that by now you understand, having just heard me read the notice of proposed adverse action in Bernadette Mano's case. Now, the other 6 were accused of either assisting in Bernadette's allegedly false claim, or allegedly they covered up Bernadette's false claim. And then, of course, I told you yesterday that the administrative law judge, Eric Miller, basically said, yeah, they all did it. And then Mary Torres, the general manager, knew what they had done. But since they knew about it, the 60-day clock started to run. You know, my word's not theirs, but the 60-day clock started to run when the conspiracy started, because management knew about the wrongdoing of Bernadette Stern. And the administrative law judge says, I'll get to that in a minute, but, you know, the general manager, Mary Torres, knew or should have known that Bernadette Mano wasn't entitled to that money because there was no workers' compensation claim ever filed to this day. So backing up a little bit, putting a little historical context in place here. All of these things happened during the time that Mary Torres was a general manager. Story points out that when this matter came to the attention of the board, and as I recall, this is what happened. There was a claim for $70,000 to send Bernadette Maino to Hawaii for medical care. And when that paper arrived at the governor's office, some sharp-eyed employee said, "Hey, what's this, $70,000? The budget for workers' comp at the port is only $30,000 for a whole year. We've never spent this kind of money before. Let's find out what's going on." So somebody at the governor's office called one of the members of the port board of directors, who called in Mary Torres to find out what's going on. And then they asked Mike Phillips, the lawyer, to find out what's going on. Well, some or all of what we've been talking about here came forward, and the board said, "Mary Torres, you need to fire these people." Mary Torres refused to fire them, so the board fired her. And shortly thereafter, they brought in Joanne Brown as the executive manager. So these cases move along very slowly towards the Civil Service Commission. Some are decided by the Civil Service Commission, appeals to the Superior Court, appeals to the Supreme Court. All of the ones that went to the Supreme Court, the port prevailed upon, except one case. So the next thing that happens then is that Governor Leon Guerrero is elected governor, and Joanne Brown is out at the port, replaced by guess who? Rory. So, Rory probably, if you were going to play poker, you'd probably want to sit down and play with Rory, because Rory tipped his hand really, really early. At the very first meeting of the port board of directors, after Rory was general manager, his first meeting with the board, he told the board three things. Number one, this YTK case, this $15 million case that's hanging over our head and are really, really scared about losing. Well, Champ Calvo, the lawyer and one of the owners of YTK, and I've been talking a little bit about mediation. We've, just some general discussion. And one of the board members, Oscar Calvo, went through the roof. You what? Who gave you permission to do that? Well, I really didn't do anything. It's just, just kind of a little chat. It turned out later on they'd agreed where the first mediation was going to take place, on and on and on. But Rory wanted to throw in the towel on the YTK case. And he tells the board, we got over $15 million, at stake there. We could maybe settle and save some money there. And one of the members said, well, why don't we go to the Supreme Court? And Rory said, well, if we lose at the Supreme Court, we don't have any bargaining position. We should settle now. But the board stood their ground, and guess what happened? Mike Phillips won the YTK case. Instead of costing us 15 or 20 million, you know how much it cost us, real Joe Cruz?
How much, sir?
Zero.
Amazing.
Not a cent.
So that's why they call Rory the settler?
The settler, yeah. He's more of a settler than I am. Yeah, Rory the settler. Next thing Rory does, he tells the board, we've got these adverse actions pending. The 7 people that were fired under the earth. I don't think those were correct. I'm looking for justice there, Rory said. So I've appointed Connie, what was her name? Brennan, right?
Brennan.
Yeah, Connie
Shinohara.
Connie Shinohara Brennan, or Connie Brennan Shinohara.
Yeah, I think her maiden name is Brennan.
Yeah, Connie Brennan Shinohara, to set up a task force to look at all of these cases to see what should be done with them. Now, these are one of them is this one here that I just read. These are not these are not no call, no show, or gee, I'm sorry I wasted paper. This is really serious stuff. It's big bucks, fraud, criminal activity.
Yeah.
It's even if these people, even if these people said, we'll never do this again, you can't have people, if these allegations are true, these kinds of people have no place in an organization. It's the classic case of one bad apple spoils a whole barrel. Well, if one bad apple spoils a whole barrel, what can a half dozen bad apples do? So that's what Rory wanted to do. He wanted to see if there was some way to work that out. And he just couldn't get that out of his head. And they settled at least one of the cases. And of course, he kept the details of the settlement undercover, even though Tina Rose Munya Barnes made a big fuss over the McNinch case. When the UOG settled that, she didn't make any fuss at all over Rory's settlement down at the port. I wonder why that was. Maybe she'd lost interest. Maybe she was too busy detecting danger to the public health or safety. So that was the second thing. First thing, we got to compromise this YTK case. Second thing, we got to have a task force to look at these Port 7 cases and bring justice to the cases, right? Third thing, we got to get rid of this Mike Phillips. Mike Phillips has got to go. We'll get rid of Mike Phillips, and then we'll bring in in-house counsel, and it'll save us a lot of money. We'll have our own lawyer inside the port who can handle all of the, the ash and trash, the day-to-day stuff, the HR stuff, the procurement stuff, and we'll cut a deal with somebody from off island for the really complicated maritime law aspects of the port. Save us a lot of money. Well, the first thing was, Mike's contract doesn't end until July. Well, all right, we're just not going to renew that contract. So come July, they didn't renew Mike's contract. Well, just standing back and looking at this kind of stuff, it's kind of like you got a fastball pitcher with 100-mile-an-hour fastball, right? That's ready to pitch the game, but your neighbor's kid is coming up to bat, and he's not going to have a chance to hit that ball. So you figure, we don't need that pitcher. Let's bring in old Soup Bone over there and let him pitch. So they got rid of Mike Phillips, because Mike Phillips would fight these cases like a tiger and probably win, like he did with YTK. Rory got rid of him, right? So then the next thing that happens is that Connie Joe Brennan Shinohara, who's running this task force, all of a sudden up and pulls a Tom Atta. No warning or anything. She's out of there. And as if by magic, Luis Baza is apparently waiting in the closet, because Shinohara no sooner says, I'm resigning, than they open the door and they usher in Luis Baza, who takes over Shinohara's job as the deputy general manager of the port. Same Luis Baza who spent several years as a commissioner on the Civil Service Commission. Same guy. So then we proceed along, and Rory's trying to settle these various cases as time goes. And they hire Joseph McDonald to be the port's lawyer. Joseph McDonald, maybe 2 months at the most, and he's gone, right? So then the next thing is Eric Miller's decision here that I read yesterday and pointed out to you that Miller says the undisputed facts are that the employee applied for and received Code 45 work injury leave on September 10 and September 17, 2012, and the general manager for the port, Mary Torres, and other management personnel signed their approval on those dates. On that date, the GM and other management knew or should have known that there was no approved WCC at the time of approving the Code 45 leave. And then later on, part of the GM's and other management personnel's responsibility and fiduciary duty is to only authorize leave and expenditures supported by the law and documents before them. It's the fundamental responsibility of management to require proof of an approved workers' comp claim before spending government money on medical treatment and injury leave. The GM and other management personnel should have known not to approve expenditures without a written document authorizing the workers' comp claim. So at the time that the management officials and Mary Torres approved this, they were breaking the law. And since they should have known not to break the law, the 60-day clock runs then. So according to this decision, Mano gets off, even though everybody who's touched this finds that she was guilty, causing me to ask the question, well, what if there is a conspiracy, which has been alleged? What if there's a conspiracy and the general manager is part of the conspiracy? Does the time start to run when one of the conspirators knows about the conspiracy? It's one of those things you can't get there from here. It makes catch-22 appear extremely logical. So that's what Miller said in his decision. And there's something else that's really strange also, and that's this. The undersigned notes that the Commission, in an order dated October 10, 2013, ruled to the contrary, finding that the employee failed to carry her burden on the 60-day rule violation. So in other words, Mano brought the 60-day rule violation before the Commission. The Commission ruled against her. Now, for lawyers, there's this idea called law of the case, that once a particular matter has been decided in a case, it's that way for the rest of the case. You don't keep deciding the same matter over and over. That's what they do at the legislature with Jim Moylan's bill, remember? But you don't do that in an adjudicative tribunal. Now, that's not to say that an adjudicative tribunal or a court never reconsiders its prior decision. But when it happens, it's almost always on motion by one of the parties. And it would always be fully explained as to what the first ruling was, what the fallacy in the first ruling was, why the matter is being reconsidered, and why the new ruling is superior to the old one. Well, here's how Eric Miller handled it. The undersigned notes that the Commission, in an order dated October 10, 2013, ruled to the contrary that the employee failed to carry her burden on the 60-day rule violation. As the pending ALJ in this case, I cannot make a recommendation to the Commission which I do not agree with. Well, that's not the standard for courts, judges, administrative tribunals, etc. The Commission has the inherent authority to reconsider its prior decision before the matter is appealed to the Superior Court. The Superior Court has not ruled on the issue of the 60-day rule in this case, and the issue, therefore, is, this is a great choice of words, and the issue, therefore, is fair game. Millions, over $500,000 involved here. And Miller characterizes it as fair game. It's pretty high stakes poker, real Joe Cruz.
It is, sir.
Yeah. Fair game for reconsideration on remand. The undersigned recommends the Commission grant employees' motion to void because the final notice of adverse action violated what was then the 60-day rule. The adverse action should be revoked. Horrible. First of all, of course, Miller says the undersigned notes that the Commission, so he wasn't there then, so he searches through the record and finds something that he says, I don't like this. So I'm going to recommend that the Commission not follow their earlier ruling. I'm not going to tell them why. I'm just going to tell them I just don't like it. And I'm doing it, what lawyers would say, got your Law and Order notebook there, Real Joe Cruz? Miller decides to do this sua sponte. Sua sponte, fancy Latin word meaning on his own motion. It wasn't that either of the parties came forward and said, please reconsider this earlier ruling. He just said, oh, you know what? I think I'll look through the record and see if there's anything in there I don't, oh yeah, I don't like this one. So I'm not going to recommend to the commission that they go along with it. I'm going to recommend that they reconsider because that would be fair game. So this whole thing does not give one a very sound feeling of confidence in our system here. So it appeared that Rory was just dead set on getting the Port 7 back to work as soon as possible and as easily as possible. Now, before Miller came along, you had Todd Thompson and Fred Horecki as administrative law judges. They did, from what I could tell, they did a workmanlike job. I don't see that here. And I was a fan of the idea of administrative law judges. For one reason, it would reduce the time spent dramatically. Second reason, you can't expect civil service commissioners to know the law. Administrative law judges would know the law. They could act like a judge in a civil or criminal case, telling the commissioners, here are the facts that I found, here is the law, here is the decision, here is my decision. That's what the statute said. Here is my decision. The commission then would have the option of rejecting or accepting the decision. I thought that was really good. But the old saying is that people are policy. So with a performance like, this is the first time any of Miller's stuff has come to my attention, but with a performance like this, like a so-called decision like this, I don't take much pleasure in knowing that we now have an administrative law judge at the Civil Service Commission. So he made his recommendation. Now the matter comes before the whole commission on the 2nd of July. So the commission will have Miller's decision, and each of the parties will have their opportunity to make a pitch to the Civil Service Commission. Curtis Vandeveld, also known as the Flying Dutchman, represents Maino. He's a good advocate. He's done a good job for her. He'll do a really good job for him. And we would expect that the port will vigorously advocate its position too, right? Yeah. So, so you'd expect that the port would have as good a lawyer as is available to take that case to the Civil Service Commission, because given the complexity of the case, the traps for the unwary before the Civil Service Commission, even the brightest layman doesn't have a chance in the face of a skilled advocate. You know the old saying, lawyers occasionally represent themselves. The old saying is that a lawyer who would represent himself has a fool for a client. Well, that goes in spades for a layman representing himself. So I was really interested because I know that Joseph McDonald had resigned very shortly after. He was not on board at the port very long at all. He'd resigned, and I hadn't paid much attention, and I was wondering, who's the lawyer for the port nowadays? Where's your Sherlock Holmes book, Real Joe Cruz?
Who is the lawyer?
With respect to who the port retained as its lawyer, you know what they did?
What did they do, sir? It's not what they did, it's what they didn't do?
It's what they didn't do.
Wow.
They did not hire a lawyer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Well, is it? Is it strange?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Or does it fit the pattern?
It does.
So I'm looking at something that looks very much like pleading paper, right? Looks very workmanlike. Like,
it does.
Like the stuff that comes out of
Judiciary,
yeah, like out of a lawyer's office.
Yes.
It's got numbers down the side. It's got the caption of the case on top. It's got a case number here. Very workmanlike, right? So lawyers would put their their professional information in the upper left-hand corner of pleading paper. Their name, their address, their email, their phone number. So I pick it up and I look at it. Luis R. Baza, Representative for Management, the Port Authority of Guam.
And who is Miss Baza?
Mr. Baza.
Mr. Baza.
Mr. Baza was the man waiting in the closet to report.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Is he an attorney?
No. He's not. We don't need no stinking.
He doesn't have ESQ at the end of his.
He does not have ESQ at the end of his name.
So why, sir? Why?
So this is response to recommendations of administrative law judge on motion to void adverse action based on violation of 60-day rule. Let me come back to this after the 7th inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers but branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Okay, so here we are, 7th inning stretch. Wrigley Field in Chicago, straight back to the Port of Guam. And guess who was pitching in Wrigley Field? Luis R. Baza. Had he ever...
It's a pinch pitcher?
Relief pitcher.
Relief pitcher,
yeah. Had he ever pitched a game before?
I've never heard of him. Never heard of him.
Does that mean he can't pitch in a Major League Baseball game? Heck no. Put him in there.
Put him in, Coach.
Yeah, put him in, Coach. So here's the first sentence of Mr. Baza's. Comes now the Port Authority of Guam by and through its lay representative, Luis R. Baza. I suppose, since he's a layman, you can't hold him for malpractice, but you could darn sure hold the board. What are they thinking of? To go into this case with a layman, no lawyer. Now it all makes sense. If you go back to that first, we got to get rid of Mike Phillips. We'll save a lot of money. We'll have in-house counsel. And he'll just be an employee of the port. Maybe we'll pay him $90,000, $100,000 or something like that. Save a lot of money. Well, they're saving a lot of money here. They're not paying a lawyer for anything. Think of the money that they'll save.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Luis Baza is not a lawyer. However, he's not a stranger to such things as Civil Service Commission cases because he had been a member of the commission right up until the time that he popped out of the closet to replace Connie Jo Brennan Shinohara. So it's very possible that he was a commissioner that sat on some of the cases dealing with the Port 7 that came before the commission. So can you go from being referee to being a coach in the same game? You know, I would wear my mask if it would protect me from harsh odors, because this whole thing stinks. It really, really stinks. So now we've got Luis Baza, who probably sat on some of these hearings, and you know, the temptation is, well, if I was a commissioner and these things came before me, no matter what I do, I'm going to defend the decision that I made at that time. I'm not going to defend the port. I'm going to defend my own kind of reputation, sort of. So how could people running a multi-million-dollar enterprise, you know, one of the most important parts of our government, how could they do this? I mean, this is really, really serious. But it's a whole lot more serious than I can make it sound, because this is an extremely huge failure to exercise not good judgment, but any judgment at all. So tonight's battle, we have in this corner, Muhammad Ali. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And in this corner, we have Real Joe Cruz.
There you go. I got a chance.
Yeah. I mean, it's about that great a mismatch. If it is a mismatch, or is it just part of the same thing that Rory set in motion back in January? Wrap these cases up, settle cases, get rid of Mike Phillips, because we know what he's like. He wouldn't go along with this kind of stuff. And then I suspect that, you know, if Baza were practicing for his day before the commission, you know what he was doing? He probably had a half dozen towels. And he practiced throwing in the towel. Like you do at a boxing match. And our guy doesn't have a chance. I'm throwing in the towel.
Wow.
So he says, the port, in its supplemental objections to findings, conclusions, etc., challenges to jurisdiction in the matter of Francine Rocio versus Port Authority, argued the legal authority to challenge jurisdiction. And this is one of the cases that Phillips won before the Supreme Court. Specifically, the Supreme Court in 2018 on Guevara stated, while this court has never directly stated that the CSC is obligated to hear all challenges to its jurisdiction whenever such challenge is raised, we have repeatedly stated, even in the context of agency administrative proceedings, that the question of subject matter jurisdiction may be raised at any time. The rules of the CSC specifically provide a mechanism by which any commissioner may at any time raise issues not raised by the parties, including questions of subject matter jurisdiction. Now, that's his argument. That's really interesting. But so what? Given the interrelatedness of this case to the case as mentioned above, and the port's pleadings thereof that the commission must determine the issue of jurisdiction for this or any case to proceed accordingly, As such, management's prayer is that the commission disposes of A.L.J. Miller's recommendation of the administrative law judge on motion to void based on violation of the 60-day rule before addressing the merits of this case. So he's saying that the commission this doesn't make sense. Miller's recommendation on motion to void based on violation of the 60-day rule before, in other words, they want to go back and do the 60-day rule thing again. For the record, as the management's lay representative for this case, I have studied this case and am prepared to move forward to argue on the merits. I'll bet he is. However, it is prudent that that A.L.J. Miller's decision first be adjudicated by the commission. So I am also of the opinion that in the interest of fairness and justice, which is the bedrock of this commission's foundation. Oh, got any cheese? The determination of jurisdiction is part and parcel of due process. Wow. Therefore, management respectfully requests the commission to decide on A.L.J. Miller's recommendation of administrative law judge on motion to void based on violation pursuant to law with respect to the 60-day rule. I've seen some stuff that just kind of got to the pit of my stomach, but I think this is as bad as I've ever seen. To send Luis Baza to the Civil Service Commission on a case with $500,000 riding, after having one of the top attorneys on the island on this case from the beginning. And of course, the complexity of the Port 7, all of these interrelated cases, even if you were to clone Clarence Darrow and bring him back, it would take him a year to get up to speed on those cases because they're so complex. So you had one of the top lawyers on the island who knew exactly how the cases went, but you had to get rid of him because if he were still on board, could you send Luis Baza to the Civil Service Commission? Absolutely not. So, to me, the fix here is this, and the hearing is the 2nd of July. If we had an awake Attorney General, he would come in and enter his appearance before the commission and move for a continuance. And then he would get this case back on track. He would do his own investigation. I just don't think things like this happen by accident. I don't think this was a, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? So, and I don't know exactly how to go about this, but it's necessary to petition the governor to fire that whole board because obviously they're not capable of handling a job of this magnitude. Maybe we could send this board up to the hospital, right? Well, all the doctors are sick today, so we've got Dr. So-and-so's clerk over here. We'll send her in to do the surgery. I guess it'll be okay. Welcome aboard Magnificent Airlines Flight number 922. The pilot and the co-pilot were both sick today, so they couldn't make it. So flight attendant Jones is going to be flying the plane today. He's got about 10,000 miles and 1,000 hours in the air. He's never flown before, but he knows a lot about airplanes.
Give him a shot.
Yeah.
What do we got to lose?
Let's give him as much support as we can. Unbelievable. Well, We've got Joanne Brown coming in tomorrow.
The Guam Visitors Bureau and Island Beautification Task Force invite you to come out and join the community on Saturday, June 27th, as we work together to beautify our island. Showtime is at 8 a.m. Let's take a moment to show our island pride, to get up and move towards building a better, safer Guam for our friends, families, and visitors. Learn how you can sign up for a beautification site or donate supplies at GuamVisitorsBureau.com and follow social media pages for updates. Special thanks to the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
Bistro in Hagåtña and Tumon are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch of Tall Tales. I got about 14 more minutes to go. You know, Real Joe Cruz, the life and times of Bernadette Mayno, that famous novel.
Yes, sir.
Must have been such a spellbinder that all of the usual suspects were speechless. I didn't hear a peep out of another Joe.
True, sir.
Yeah, Jimmy's thoughts must have been captured by Missouri.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's riveting.
Whatever happened to our Carl?
I don't know, sir.
Yeah.
Maybe they're sitting there in awe at this whole thing.
I was. I mean, the whole thing is just leaves you awestruck.
All the players, all the games.
All the games, and the new parlor game, throwing in the towel.
Throwing in the towel, the dogs and the ponies. And
yeah. Charades.
Yes.
Charades. You walk in like this and you say, "Good afternoon, Your Honor." Charades? What was I? A lawyer. Right?
You were a lawyer.
Yeah.
You almost Perry Mason right there, sir.
Yeah. So I suppose Luis Baz has been playing charades, you know, with his friends, you know, to get ready to go up and represent the port and the Civil Service Commission. Yeah. It's really not funny. It's such a tragedy.
We're laughing because we have no other emotions towards it right now. It's unbelievable.
I've read that's what humans do. Sometimes, you know, you see somebody slip on the ice or something like that, and you laugh. It's not funny, but it is a way to release that emotional tension. And this is about as tense as anything. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised when Rory was ready to throw in the towel, or toss the towel to Champ on the what was that?
The Y2K?
The Y2K. Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, what did Michael San Nicolas say? And Lou said he should apologize.
Yes.
Because he said the incompetence of the government. Boy, here we are right here. You know, it would take a couple of the writers from Law and Order to write up a script like this. This one might even be too tough for Jack McCoy, you know? All right, next item on the card is Lou versus the people. Public health, wear a mask, maintain social distance, or risk committing a misdemeanor. Lou isn't going to quit until she can start locking this up for disobeying her orders. Now, we've made comparisons before with the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland. And of course, the Red Queen's most famous line is this: sentence first, verdict later. Yeah. So Lou, remember, she wanted the legislature to give her the power to fine us $5,000 or to lock us up for a year if we violated any of her commands. Yeah. A PSA done by the Ohio Department of Health used mousetraps and ping pong balls to illustrate the importance of social distancing. Well, that's something else. If you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped wearing a mask, organized large gatherings, unless it's to play poker, or violated the 6-foot social distancing rule, the Department of Public Health and Social Services has an answer. Your activity could be deemed a public nuisance, and you could be guilty of a misdemeanor. If you run a business that is in violation, you could lose your sanitary permit, which could cost you your business license. Public nuisance is defined as anything determined to be dangerous to life, injurious to health. This sounds like Tina again, right? Sounds like the same test for calling a special session of the legislature and waiving public hearing requirements. Or renders soil, air, water, or food impure or wholesome. Director Linda DeNorsi stated in a memo. She's the one that said, you can't have any of these sacramental services. I'm really getting sick of this, Real Joe Cruz. I really am.
I know, sir.
This today, all this stuff today, the $79,000 cars and the blowing of the grant application and sending Louis Baza to the Civil Service Commission. How low can, it's like we're playing limbo here. How low can you go? All right. A business can be deemed a public nuisance if it fails to require workers or customers to use face masks, fails to enforce 6-foot social distancing, fails to post appropriate signs letting people know face masks and social distancing are required, doesn't have a policy in place for frequent cleaning, doesn't have an organization-specific plan in place that can be presented to public health or rev and tax upon request, doesn't follow occupancy limits, exceeds the authorized number of people for social gatherings on the business premises, says insulting things about the governor. It's not on the list. I just made that up, Real Joe Cruz. Individuals can be deemed a public nuisance if they fail to use face masks in public, don't follow social distancing rules, exceed the authorized number of people in social gatherings. So that's really interesting. So I happen to have the order from Commissar DeNorsi, and and she says,
Oh, I like your ringtone, sir.
yeah,
Maybe you should just put your finger on it and turn it off. Is that your phone, sir, or no?
it's my iPad.
Oh, I see.
Wow. Yeah, so Commissar DeNorsi goes through the same thing in the article here, and then she goes on. Businesses and organizations are reminded that industry-specific and organization-specific guidance plans must be developed, etc. And then she says, pursuant to Section 20106 of Title 10, DPHS is authorized to conduct inspections of public, private grounds, vehicles, aircraft shifts, etc., in order to enforce and order the immediate abatement of public, she says public nuisance, but she ought to say public nuisances, and there's a big difference. And then penalty, any person or business which fails to operate consistent with the applicable executive orders, etc., is guilty of Chapter 20, Title 10, and it's a misdemeanor. Now, I'm not going to have time to finish this today, but I'm going to spend a fair amount of time on it tomorrow. Let's just talk in terms of public nuisance. A public nuisance is not that kid down the block that's always throwing mud at the front of your house, right? So that's not what a public nuisance is.
Not like Dennis the Menace?
Not Dennis the Menace is not a public. If anybody could do it, Dennis could do it. Yeah. All right. A public nuisance is a physical structure.
Ah, I see.
A public nuisance, in the general definition of things. So an example would be a derelict house. The people moved out 15 years ago. The house stands there. The windows are broken. It's infested with rats. Kids sneak in there and build fires and do God knows what else inside there.
Drug addicts hanging out in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a public nuisance. And the law allows for the abatement of public nuisances. So I have the statute here. This is, again, a classic case of, like the governor did with her magic Title 10, Chapter 19 powers. She found the ability to send her son-in-law to the hospital and make a deal without a written contract, procurement, etc., any of that stuff. Well, apparently she's doing the same thing here, because a public nuisance is any condition which the director deems a public nuisance shall be subject to immediate abatement. Every person who maintains or commits any public nuisance on private or public property or willfully omits to perform any legal duty relating to the removal of a public nuisance. A stack of old cars and tires could be a public nuisance. Pretty common, right? The director, 2106, is authorized to make inspections of all public, private grounds, buildings, vehicles, etc., etc. He may order compliance with the provisions of this part and the immediate abatement of public nuisances. 20105, the director may adopt and promulgate such rules and regulations. Of course, that hasn't happened. There are no rules and regulations. So public nuisance on private property. Every person who maintains, permits, or allows a public nuisance to exist upon his property, and every person occupying or leasing the property of another who maintains, permits, or allows public nuisance to exist thereon, after receiving personal notice in writing from the Director or Attorney General to discontinue or abate, is guilty of a misdemeanor. Does that sound like wearing a mask? Nothing like wearing a mask. Upon serving of the notice of the existence of a public nuisance to the responsible person, the director shall allow the person a reasonable period of time to abate the nuisance. So even if she's correct, a reasonable time, you are a public nuisance. You're not wearing your mask. I'm giving you a reasonable time to abate that nuisance. I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. This is maddening. It's not as bad as turning Luis Baza into a lawyer, but it's pretty bad. Bad enough I want to come back and give it the full treatment tomorrow.